London and ridden on the tube, on the subway, then you hear an automated voice say to you whenever the subway pulls up, "Mind the gap." And they say that over and over and over and over. So you just hear it in your sleep, mind the gap. Rather than saying, watch your step, it's a British way of saying, watch your step. It's mind the gap. And they sell all kinds of t-shirts and stuff that have the subway image, the tube image on it that says, mind the gap. And I've always thought, that's a good reflection on theology. You get this constant reminder when you're on the subway to mind the gap. So where is the gap? The gap is between God and us. There's a gap. And we should be aware of it. And Jesus' answer to that female voice that keeps telling you to mind the gap is Pentecost, because he takes care of that gap. There is no longer a gap between God and us. Jesus breathes on the disciples and sends the Holy Spirit, and that Holy Spirit is still with us to this day, and is in each and every one of you, baptized followers of Jesus. There is no gap. Though we might feel it. You think, well, no. God still feels like really far away. Like sometimes when the subway pulls up, it's a pretty good size gap. You think, oh, I'm glad they told me to mind it, because otherwise I might have fallen through there, or you have to take a big step. Sometimes there's really like no gap at all. They still say it. So if you're feeling it, then on this Pentecost, I think it's a good idea to think about what we learn in those readings about that Spirit and how it's acting in your life. I think it's fascinating that on that first Pentecost, those people from all those different places, all those different languages, all understood the message, which tells us that the Holy Spirit, that God, doesn't make you perform a certain way or be a certain way before he sends the message to you. He is going to give the message to you in the language you can understand, in a way that you can hear it. That's God's doing. That's the Holy Spirit's doing. God makes the move first. So God has been there. Now, our job, if we're feeling a distance, is we have to listen, because the message is coming our way. God is speaking to you in the depth of your heart. If God is feeling distant, it's usually something we are doing. To say, I don't really want to hear that. No, thank you. And the majority of the time we're saying that because we think that we're going to have to make a big change in our life. And sometimes we do. Sometimes if we're sinning and God keeps wanting to love us, the sin keeps pulling us away from God, then yes, we probably need to change if we want that relationship to be better. But sometimes I think there's a false fear there, or maybe the fear is real, but what you're afraid of is not real. I think sometimes people think God is going to ask me to do something very heroic. And I don't want to do that. Like we have a group going to Guatemala this week, and probably they're like, oh, if I start listening to God, I got to go to Guatemala with Father Damian and be on a mountainside somewhere with a bunch of poor people. And they, no, that may not be God's call for you at all. And most of the time, it is not. Not something that heroic. You don't have to worry that, okay, if I get closer to God, I'm going to be doing something overseas, or I'm going to have to be a priest, or I'm going to be a nun, or no. But God, through the Holy Spirit, is giving you gifts. And those gifts, as we hear often from St. Paul, are not for you. They are for the community. They are for God's family. They are for the world. And so if you are growing closer to God, there will be some call. In little ways, most of the time. Listening to somebody, encouraging them, helping someone along the way. Just little, simple things that are for the other. Now, as St. Luke tells us in that first reading, the way the Holy Spirit came upon the apostles was in the form of fire, which is why we wear red on Pentecost, because that's how the Holy Spirit came down upon them. And all of us know that fire changes things. It dramatically changes things. Things are not the same after fire gets a hold of them. And I always think it's kind of interesting that Jesus says, how I want to set the world on fire. And St. Ignatius says, there's a big sculpture down on the Creighton campus, go set the world on fire. And there's a fire burning there all the time. Fire. Because fire is powerful. It was fire that allowed us human beings to develop in so many ways. It is fire that has energized so much of our industry. It is a symbol of power. If you're sitting here today and you say, I've never felt power of the Holy Spirit, then ask for it. So on this Pentecost, ask. Ask God to let you feel that power. Because it was feeling that power that allowed the disciples to change lives. That's what you feel when there's no gap, is the power of God in you. Then you're able to touch the incredible power of the universe and make it your own. And then you can do that incredible thing of changing a human life. Because only God can do that. Only God's power does that, not ours. As I say so often to people in a counseling session, you can't change somebody else. It's impossible. You can barely change yourself. But God can. God can change a human heart. I can't change a human heart. But God does. And if you let God's power work through you, hearts will change. The world will change. It will feel like it's on fire.